right. In our next game, Aaron Rodgers continues his revenge tour against the NFC North this year, and is the Pittsburgh Steelers. And Aaron Rodgers returning to the site of one of the greatest plays of his career in Ford Field to face off against a very different Lions team than he played at that time. So it's an interesting game. You got the Lions hosting the Steelers. I'll say it every time. I think the Lions have as good a home field advantage as anybody at Ford Field. So you always have to factor that in. What is the line currently at on this game, Mike? And what are your thoughts on how this one's going to turn out?
Well, right now it's at 6.5. Over under Lions 6.5. Over under is at 51. I mean, the season's on the line for both of these teams. I love that going into this game. Way more on the line, though, if you're the Detroit Lions. The Lions can score. I mean, so since 2022, they have the second most consecutive wins following a loss. And they look way more alive than this Pittsburgh Steelers team we just saw play on Monday against the Dolphins. I think there's questions, though, going in with the Lions secondary and the Steelers secondary. You're going to see, I think, a lot of shots in this game. I love the over at 51.5. Rodgers still looks like he's playing in the old days. The arm looks good. I think that's how the Lions know they have to stay in every game, is to make these games shootouts. What I'm seeing, though, with the Lions, in terms of how they've played in the past couple of weeks, is there's like a concrete floor, I feel like, that Dan Campbell plays at. The team is not – they're not going to lose by a certain amount of points. Like, there is a pride to be able to cover the spreads. Now, they're favored in this. I lean Lions in this. Pittsburgh coming off a short week. I think Jared Goff has looked good, but I also think a fire is lit under their ass a lot more than, 38-year-old, 39-year-old, 40-year-old Aaron Rodgers to, be able to stay alive in this playoff berth, even with how minimal of, the tight sphincter that they got, going into this playoff run. I love the Lions here to cover, and I love this over going into this game. Playing in Detroit, hostile environment. Give me the Lions. I don't know what we're going to see out of this Pittsburgh offense, but I think what I like about the over is you're seeing the Pittsburgh offense go from freezing ass cold to a controlled environment. I think you're going to see a lot more movement. I think you're going to see a lot more points. You're going to see a lot more running the ball, a lot more throwing the ball from Aaron Rodgers against a poor secondary for the Detroit Lions and a pass rush that has been very inconsistent thus far. That's why I like the over. I actually like the first half over at 23.5. It may move up to 24.5. Grab that key number if you can. Yeah, I like 23.5 over. I love 51.5 over, but I do like the Lions if I'm going to lean aside.
Yeah, the only the only thing that gives me pause, I like the Lions to win this game. The only thing that gives me a pause for concern is I think it's a well-known fact that this is a must-win for the Lions. It's an absolute must-win. If they lose, they're most likely done in the NFC and eliminated. Pittsburgh can lose this game, and they still control their own destiny. In fact, if the Ravens actually win this week, it renders Week 17 meaningless for both the Ravens and the Steelers, and it all comes down to Week 18 anyway. The one thing that does give me pause in any of these scenarios is when a team is in a must-win scenario like the Lions, and it's so broadcasted as a must-win, you rarely get any value in that spread. And I think that's why we're seeing it at 7. What I really like in this game, Mike, and you touched on it with the over, I think the best bet you can make on this game is a turtle teaser you tease the Lions down to a pick 'em, and then you tease the over/under down to 45 and go over that. And I think that's the best way to attack it. I like the Lions to win. I don't know if I can get there with a number like 7, based off of the performance of their defense as of late and just the variance that Dan Campbell plays with. I think laying points is a little bit tough for me to get there. Laying 7, so to speak, is a little bit tough for me to get there. I do think they win the football game, though. So I'll take the Lions to win, and I will take that teaser Lions pick 'em over 45.
Yeah, and one to also look at, I think, when we get there, once they finish the first half, is see what that line is going to be right before they open up the second half. Depending on how the game is going, I think if you got the Lions, ahead by maybe a field goal or 4 or 5 points, that may be a spot to lean.
Gambling Dan, man, just leaves so much. Just leaves the Lions are just such a variance heavy team. I mean, it either goes with them or it goes against them, and you really, if Dan Campbell decides to go for it at the 6-yard line and doesn't get it, I mean that could tank you. That could tank your over real quickly, especially if he does that 2 or 3 times. You know what I mean? Yeah. But Pat, Christian, any thoughts?
Christian, go ahead.
Yeah, I actually like the Steelers a lot in this game.
Wow.
I think it's a severe matchup disadvantage for the Lions. Their secondary. DJ Reed is 5'9". He's their best corner. Terran Arnold has been out, but he's also small. They have a really small secondary. Brian Branch obviously done for the year. Kirby Joseph not around. I think this game's going to be pretty similar to the Pittsburgh-Baltimore game, where you saw Aaron Rodgers open it up real early, throw a bunch of go balls to DK Metcalf early, get Darnell Washington out in space. And this is, I think they just have the size advantage on this defense. They have all the ability in the world to control time of possession this week. As much as, Dan Campbell's done a great job with the offense, he is always, bound to make 1 or 2 questionable decisions, whether it be with a timeout, a challenge, or going for it on 4th down when you don't have to. I think this is definitely the type of game where a bad decision, like going for it on 4th down at your own 40-yard line, could easily cost you the game, because I definitely don't think it's going to be that high scoring. But if it is, it's going to look a lot like this Pittsburgh-Miami game on Monday, I think, with, just the size advantage Pittsburgh will have. I think if you get DK or Darnell the ball out in space, all of a sudden Valdez-Scantling, Adam Thielen are around, type of receivers that Aaron Rodgers does appreciate. I think they could really surprise the Detroit Lions this week. And it's one of the, only times in life where I can actually root for Aaron Rodgers, because we do need the Lions to lose. And I think, even if the Lions do lose this week, they're still in it. They got to beat Minnesota, and then they got to play us. So
it does feel like a game that's going to be extremely deflating for whichever team loses it. It kind of feels almost, even if they're not going to be eliminated per se for either team, it kind of feels like a must win just for their playoff hopes. You obviously have the Ravens nipping at the Steelers' heels here. They have a big game of their own this week. And then for the Lions, they need to win every game they can get to try and push their luck to then maybe make the Week 18 game against the Bears a win and you're in situation. But yeah, it's Aaron Rodgers is playing his best ball as a Steeler. At least last night, he looked like, or on Monday night, he definitely looked like a revitalized, revived version of himself from 10 years ago, which as a Bears fan kind of gave me some PTSD. But then again, you mentioned it, Christian, where you go up against a hobbled Lions defense. You're hitting your stride as an offense. and you're clicking at the right time. Aaron Rodgers is against all odds. I thought that Joey Bosa hit might have ended his career, but he's been able to stay upright, and they're playing meaningful football right now. And so I'll trust that Mike Tomlin is going to be able to have his team ready to play. They, as an underdog, Mike Tomlin's obviously constantly, he's the move to make as an underdog. You don't bet against Mike Tomlin. So yeah, give me the Steelers to cover, and I like them to win outright as well, Christian. I think that the Lions have been inconsistent enough, and it's one thing to have the Dan Campbell rah-rah, go for it every time, have that style of a head coach when you're winning and when you're one of the best teams in football. But when you absolutely need to get a win, I do have a feeling that if there's a big gamble that happens or a big risk that gets taken and it ends up costing them this game, it could derail their whole season, even if they're not eliminated per se. It just feels like there's a lot of oxygen to this game for both teams where, whoever loses it, it's going to be absolutely deflating. Steelers have had a couple deflating losses this season, but they're coming off a ton of momentum after that win on Monday night. And the Lions, again, had a very tough loss against the Rams, who they couldn't stop. So, it's the Steelers aren't quite the Rams, but I do think that Aaron Rodgers will be able to pick apart that hobbled Lions secondary to cover and to possibly get the win. I do like the over as well, Mike, in this game. I think there will be a lot of points scored, but as you mentioned, the wrong Dan Gamble could end up costing us that bet too. So
yeah, it's hard to get there. It's hard to get there to lay a 7, especially, and I can't believe I forgot as well the Tomlin's record, especially as an underdog of 4 or more historically. Just crazy there. I think that just I can't bring myself to bet the Lions -7. I still think they'll win. So I like my teaser, man. But I'm with you guys. I mean, if I had to pick a side, I think the Steelers +7 would be the side I would take if there's a gun to my head.
Yeah. I can't get over DJ Reed 5'9" versus DK. Just can't get that out of my head.
Yeah, maybe DK.
A mismatch.
DK longest reception over whatever it's going to be, probably like 24.5 or something. That seems like a
45-yard bomb. Yeah.
Yeah.
You got to wait for the end of these videos to really get the good prop betting nuggets from Pedro and Mike. But all right.